Hey, welcome to the How to Podcast series. This is Dave. It's a little something different today. Can you hear the music's different? Yeah. I love great music. So, today we are doing a podcast review. You're like, what? Yeah, podcast review. Something we're adding to what we do over at howtopodcast.ca. Now, here's how it works. And we'll tell you about this many times as we go through this. But if you have a podcast and you're like, I would love for somebody to listen to my show and just give me some feedback, that's what I would love to do for you. Now, who am I to do that? Well, let's see. I have 7 podcasts, all active, over 450 episodes in just over a year. One podcast alone has 160 interviews at the time of this recording today. It's living the next chapter. So, yeah, there's a lot of podcasting going on, and I listen to a lot of amazing podcasts. And I listen to some podcasts that could just use a little bit of help. And that's what I want to offer to you. Now, what you're not going to get in this podcast review is any snarky comments. You're not going to get somebody talking down to you. You're not going to be feeling sad or feeling discouraged. You're going to get some great suggestions, great feedback. And the other thing is, you get to review this podcast review before it goes out to the world. So no surprises here. None. We're doing this just to help you. And that's the whole idea for the How to Podcast series podcast review. And I love to do this for you. Howtopodcast.ca is the website. Links in the show notes. You can get your podcast reviewed. And you're like, Dave, what's this going to cost? I can't wait. Oh, it's going to be so expensive. You know what? Right now, as we get these off the ground, I have a request. That you pay me nothing. Yep. 0. Nothing. But instead, you pick a charity of your choice. It could be a local charity in your community. It could be something global. But I want you to pick a charity, and I want you to make a donation to that charity because it matters to you. Whatever it is. And then tell me what that charity is, and we're going to do a commercial for them, for that charity, here in your episode, in your podcast review. So not only do you get a review of your podcast, you also get to shout out your favorite charity that you've donated to make all this happen. So, in advance, thank you for donating to the charity of your choice. Thank you for submitting your podcast for a review here on the How to Podcast series. And I hope that you're excited and happy with the results as we go through today's podcast review. You and me, podcast host and podcast host, sharing ideas together to improve our podcasts. So they're better for our listener, better for our audience, better for growing our show. Are you up for that? I think you are. So grab a cup of coffee, a tea, whatever you have as a beverage today, this morning, and let's take a dive into your podcast here on the How to Podcast series podcast review. So glad you're here. Here we go. Okay, welcome to the podcast review here on the How to Podcast series. Today we're going to be looking at our very first podcast review. Are you nervous? I'm nervous. I hope this goes well. I think it will. Our podcast today is called My Time with Glory, and it's a psycho-education in the healing of trauma using mindfulness, relaxation skills, reparenting techniques, journaling, and positive self-affirmations. Join Glory for a positive and effective journey in healing. And today we're going to be reviewing episode number 1 of Glory's podcast. And it's called Healing Trauma, Relaxation, and Wellness Skills. I'm already relaxed, and I've just read the title. So we're going to jump into the podcast. But before we do, here's a little voiceover guy to talk a little bit more about the podcast. Welcome to the How to Podcast series podcast review. Are you ready? here we go.
Welcome to our new podcast review episode here on the How to Podcast series. Here is how this works. Dave will listen to and review your podcast from start to finish. Dave will share his thoughts on your show and offer suggestions for you to consider that may help to increase your audience engagement, further your success, and improve the overall listening experience for your listener. With over 450 episodes recorded over 7 active podcasts in just over a year, Dave will share what he's learning in the podcast space with the most up-to-date information and suggestions gleaned from practical, first-hand knowledge. This is your podcast. You and your audience have the final say on your show. Dave hopes that the following suggestions shared here today will encourage you and help you to continue to share your voice and your unique story with the world. Thank you for participating. Today's podcast review features my time with Glory, psychoeducation, and the healing of trauma, using mindfulness relaxation skills, reparenting techniques, journaling, and positive self-affirmations. Join Glory for a positive and effective journey in healing. The title for this episode is Episode 1, Healing Trauma, Relaxation, and Wellness Skills.
Okay, so here we go. My time with Glory. Now, when I hit play on this podcast for the first time, I think it took me like a fraction of a second to be relaxed. This is Glory. This is a great podcast to just unwind. Oh my gosh. So what I'm going to do is play clips from the podcast, and Glory's given me permission to do so thank you, Glory. So I'm going to play clips. I'm going to start with the intro of the podcast. And I think you'll understand what I mean. It's amazing. So I'm going to jump in and make comments as we go, and we're going to go on a little journey together. And as we go, we'll make some comments, some suggestions, and some things that come to mind as we listen together. And I'm excited to do this. So Glory, thank you for sharing your podcast, and thank you for making a donation as well to the charity of your choice to do this. It's awesome. So here we go. Enough of me. Let's kill the music and let's jump into my time with Glory with our host, Glory. I hope you're ready to get relaxed. Here we go. So here's the intro. This is what it sounds like when you hit play on episode 1 of My Time with Glory. Here we go.
Welcome to My Time with Glory. This is Season 1, Episode 1. I'm going to ask you to make a commitment to yourselves today. In that commitment, you are going to listen to these podcasts with intention.
Okay, so right off the bat, Glory, I love the feeling of the podcast. You brought us in right away. You set the mood with that music. Is amazing. I love it. It's just, when you have your earbuds in, it just fills every space. And I love it. So good start, Glory. Very, very good start. You got me right off the bat. So let's keep going.
Your intention is to heal, to take psychoeducation in coping skills, mindfulness, data on how trauma happens and what the symptoms are. And your intention would be to spend time listening, thinking, processing, practicing coping skills, practicing to reach the goal, your goal of healing. We are going to begin today with a relaxation exercise, a form of mindfulness. We're going to use our mind, our body, and our soul to come together and relax. So what I want you to do is take a deep breath in and hold it as long as you can comfortably. Then I want you to let the air out slowly.
So Glory, what I love here is that I feel like you're here with me, and that you're right beside me, walking me through this. Like, it's so immersive, and I love how how you're doing this, and you leave the spaces. Podcasters hate space, and you're actually leaving it in here, and you're building a world for me just to come in and relax and engage. So, good job.
As you let the air out, you could feel your body relax. You can feel the tension leaving your body. This time, when you take a breath in, fill your lungs as far as they will fill, and hold it in as long as you can comfortably. And as you're holding the air in this time, I want you to notice where in your body you're holding tension, and I want you to relax those body parts. So take a deep breath in.
So this is definitely not a podcast you listen to if you're tired and driving in your car on a long trip. I would be out. Love it. Oh, it's glorious. This is great.
Letting it out slowly, letting the tension flow out of you with each breath. Now this time I want you to repeat. Fill your lungs with air, as much air as you can take in, and hold it in as long as you can. This time, see if your jaw is locked, and if it is, loosen your jaw. Just open your mouth a little. Open your jaw, let it kind of hang open a little bit. Move your neck around. Get those kinks out of those trapezoid muscles, out of your neck, out of your shoulders. Take a deep breath in.
Oh, you're right here with me the whole time, Gloria. I love this. And I love the cadence of your voice. You're very clear, very easy to listen to. It's great.
Loosening your jaw, moving your head and neck around. Circular motion. I want you to clench your shoulders up to your head, crunching those muscles, those trapezoid muscles, and then let your shoulders fall back down. Repeat that. Crunch your shoulders up towards your head, the back of your head, hold it, and let it down. Once again, hold your shoulders up, way up to your head, crunching it into your head, and then let it back down. That helps to release a lot of tension in the muscles in your trapezoids. The trapezoids are the muscles that attach your neck to your shoulders and your shoulder blades. Now this time we're going to fill our lungs up with air again and hold it as long as we can. And we're going to let our tummies pooch out because we hold a lot of tension in our tummies. So pooch out your tummy. Let your arms and legs become noodles, jello, just so loose, so heavy. Just relax. So take that deep breath of air.
You can tell that you're actually doing this along with us. And you're not just reading from a script, Gloria. It's awesome. Really good.
Letting it out slowly. Letting all that tension and stress flow out of your body. Noticing how relaxed you are now. Your jaw is relaxed. Your neck, your shoulders, your back, your tummy are all relaxed. Your arms are loose and relaxed. Your legs are loose and relaxed. Just wiggle your hands and your fingers, your ankles, your feet and your toes, gently moving them to get that tension out. And take another deep breath. Tension out, letting all the negativity leave your body. feel how relaxed you are, how calm and relaxed and calm. Now we're just going to breathe one more time. Take a deep breath of air, fill your lungs, and hold it as long as you can, letting out all the last little bits of any tension and stress that there might be inside your body, your mind, and your soul. So take that deep breath.
Okay, Gloria, this is such a great podcast. I love this. You won me over with this. I love this. So this podcast is 19 minutes to 25 seconds long. Great length for an episode as well, Glory. So I would encourage people, if you're looking for a way to relax and really get in touch with who you are, this is a great podcast for you to check out. So links will be in the show notes for you to go over and check this podcast out. So Glory, I don't know who you got your music from, but I would give them a shout out as well on your podcast episodes, because that background music is amazing. Really, really brings you in, and yeah, they're awesome. Would love to know more about that. Some general thoughts, Gloria, as I kind of go through and summarize some of the feelings I had listening to the podcast. It's very peaceful. It's very engaging. I just love how you bring people in right from the beginning. You really explain it all. So we'll have the ending of your podcast here in a moment. The one thing we can maybe add to your podcast to give you some tools is think about using your RSS feed for your podcast. That's your unique ID for this podcast. You have it through Anchor, so that's great. Take that, head over to Podpage, and on Podpage you can create a website. And it's really simple. You can use a free version of Podpage, and that'll give you a little bit more engagement for your audience to come and find you and interact with you and find out where your podcast is listed. I'd encourage you to list your podcast on as many different podcast apps as possible, because I think you can help a lot of people with your podcast. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of great options, and Podpage will actually direct you and give you a list of all the other places you could have your podcast. If you have any questions about how to submit this Anchor feed, your RSS feed, to all the other podcast listening apps, let me know and I can help you with that. But try to get out to as many places as possible. Would like to know what your plans are around your website and how that will work together with your podcast. And as well, I'd love to hear from you, as maybe if you can respond back on SpeakPipe, that would be great. But just include for me what your big picture is for the podcast. Where are we going? And I think that would be really cool in a trailer for the episode. Would be, hi, my name is Glory. Here's the podcast. Here's why I'm doing it. Here's what my hope is. Who this podcast is for. And just create a short little trailer. So that's not a regular episode. That would be the trailer. That would be the top of the list when you come to your page. And that's kind of like a little sample for people to just check out the podcast and see if this is for them. Because jumping into episode 1, it's so immersive. You just get right into it. I love that. But maybe somebody wants to come and just find out what the podcast is about and whether or not they want to listen to it. So a trailer is really good. Make it short, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Just the big idea. What is the podcast? Who is it for? And why does this podcast exist? Simple questions like that. Answer those questions and let people know about the podcast. Trailers are great. So I would encourage you to do a trailer. So around the 10-minute mark, you jump in with what I just talked about and you give us a sense of what the podcast is about. And that is almost basically what you need for your trailer. So here's at the 10-minute mark. This is Glory explaining her podcast to her listener. And I find it interesting that you have it at the 10-minute mark. I wondered if that was something you decided to do, or is that just how it happened? But you give us some really good detail about the podcast at the 10-minute mark. So here it is right here.
We are very delicate beings, us humans. And so during these episodes in this podcast, we are going to focus on exactly what trauma is, how we may have been traumatized, what can we do to help ourselves and to heal.
So there it is. That right there, I would say, would be your trailer. That's perfect. And then maybe have a call to action in your trailer, like go to my website or find me on social media, find my podcast here, any of that kind of information. Would just add that on to what you just did. There's your trailer. Really, really good. I love it. So Glory goes on to give us a great teaching within this episode. I highly encourage you to go check it out. Again, all the links in the show notes to go check it out. But then this is how Glory ends the podcast, and I wanted to share that with you here as well. So here's the ending of Glory's podcast.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this episode, and you're that much closer to your goal in healing. Consider practicing these skills and journaling this week. And I look forward to being with you again in our next episode. Consider sharing this podcast with others that may need it. And don't forget to visit my page at patreon.com/gloryofthewest or buymeacoffee.com/gloryofthewest. There you will find many free resources to help you specifically with different issues you're struggling with.
So Glory, that's really great. I love the ending. I love that you give a call to action. You give the listeners something that they can do to follow up with you. Having the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee is a great way for people to connect with you and to support you and support the costs of having a show and your time. So that's great. Just consider as well, I think we mentioned, just maybe having a website address. So it's not very expensive to have a website. I think for each of my podcasts, I have 7. Each of them have their own web place online. And the beauty of having a website, Glory, is that, say, for example, years from now, you've changed from Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, and maybe there's a new thing that you would like people to go to. If you want to future-proof your podcast so that people listening to this episode 1, and they find it 5 years from now, they will still have a good call to action. So if you have a website, that's your address. It doesn't matter what changes in the future, like Patreon, say, for example, they change, or again, Buy Me a Coffee, maybe they change, or you have a new one. You can always send people to your website, and your website would be the constant. So no matter what changes around you, you have your own spot. And by having your own spot on the web with your own web address, that's you. You will get all of the Google attention. When people are looking for you, they will come to your website before they would go to a Patreon or to a Buy Me a Coffee thing. So just keep that in mind. A website's always great to have, great for the future. It's a great way to communicate and stay in touch with your audience. So consider that in the future. Again, if you need any help with that, I have all my websites built. They're very simple. You have to buy the domain, and you can actually build your website on Canva, which is amazing. I'm playing with that right now, and you can do that, or you can have your website like a builder that will be there on your website to make it look nice and work well, and you can do that very, very inexpensively. So I can answer that question for you and help you in that way as well. So there you go. That's a little bit from Glory's podcast, and really enjoy going through your content. It's a great podcast, Glory. Great job.
A charitable donation has been made to help the earthquake victims in Syria. Here is more about this amazing endeavor. On February 6th, a deadly earthquake hit southern Turkey and northern Syria. While most countries rushed to help the victims in Turkey, very few countries help Syrians in their despair. Therefore, I'm creating this crowdfunding as a Syrian with Armenian origins from Aleppo to deliver much-needed funding to the humanitarian organizations in Syria, namely Sauriya Bitmana and We Are Superheroes. The aid will be delivered to Aleppo, Hama and Jabla governorates, which were heavily hit by the earthquake for all Syrians, including the Armenian community in Aleppo. Please visit their website for more. Fundraising platform heysatter.com. Support your local or global charity today. Thank you for listening.
So the one thing that we're doing uniquely different here on our podcast reviews is we're encouraging you, when you're submitting your podcast for review, to pick a charity, make a donation to that charity, and then tell us about the charity so that we can talk about it here on your reviewed podcast episode. So this is the information that Glory has provided about the charity donation she made. Again, we're not disclosing any amounts here. We're just telling you about the charity that Glory has picked. So here's the information from Glory about her choice and her donation. So here we go.
If you would like your podcast reviewed right here on the How to Podcast series, here is what you need to do. Contact Dave via our website, howtopodcast.ca. Provide a link to your podcast. Select the episode that you want Dave to review. Dave has asked that you make a charitable donation to the charity of your choice in lieu of payment for this review. Please include information about and a link to the charity that you have donated to, so that we can highlight that specific charity during your episode review. All review episodes will be shared with you as the host prior to their release to the How to Podcast series listeners. This will give you, as the host, a chance to listen to Dave's review in advance. Visit howtopodcast.com for more on this podcast review service, link in the show notes. We would love to review your podcast on a future episode. Thanks for listening and for supporting our featured podcast review today.
And thanks for listening to the How to Podcast series. We'd love to know your feedback on this episode. This is new. This is me playing with different things. But I love to share your podcast. Reach out today. Have a good day.